So we've kind of had a bit where, we've seen the Frostfire Mage tree, now we're really waiting for the other two to come out as we get more information coming to us over time from the War Within. And I wanted to today talk about Spellslinger, because I think that Frostfire has kind of set the tone for mages, but I do think that the other two specializations are going to be very different from what Frostfire is, in part because there's a lot of other, when you're looking at other class trees, they're not really mixing class fantasy as much, right? Like Scale Warden, this isn't really causing you to cast things of the other specializations or anything. It's really just enhancing your own capabilities. I think that's something that we're going to see a lot more with the other two specializations. I know that with Frostfire, a lot of people are like, oh, I don't want to be like mixing all the elements every time I'm choosing a subspecialization, but I don't think that'll be true. One of the things that I find interesting is that, first of all, I think the only predictable things on this tree before it was released was Frostfire Bolt, and then this whole Comet Storm Meteor thing. That was something a lot of people were talking about. Everything else is, it's rather unique. It's interesting. So, yeah, I think what I'm going to be trying to go for is looking at like the core tenets of the Spellslinger build, rather than trying to say this is exactly what it will be, because obviously they seem like they're having a bit of a good expansion for design for mage if this is what they're coming up with. So we're looking at Spellslinger, right? We're looking at things that like Frost and Arcane share and what like the thematic of it could be. We're mainly looking at haste, we're looking at like cleave effects, we're looking at multi-strike. So I don't really have like that many things written here. This was like a little bit of a summary of kind of similar talents that Arcane and Frost share, right? So Arcane Tempo is when you barrage, you gain haste. Chain Reaction is when you ice lance, you gain damage. So, you could reverse that for the other specs, saying you gain haste per ice lance, you gain barrage damage per barrage cast. With Cleave, I think we're very, very likely, in my opinion, to get something like this, that Scale Commander got, where you have an effect that's going to cause either a spell that doesn't currently cleave to cleave, or a spell that does cleave to cleave more. In my opinion, I would prefer something to like during a certain window over a certain number of casts, like your splitting ice will hit an additional target, right? Making Frost really good at 3-target cleave. And then something similar probably for potentially Arcane Blast. I would assume that the current missiles tier set is either going to be hopefully put into the talent tree for Arcane in a bit of a better iteration, or be in this talent tree as for Arcane, because that could also apply to that. Is you get this current tier 4 set as Arcane and Spellslinger, because I think that fits the thematic of Spellslinger great, and it feels really good to use the missiles when it's not bugged with all the missile bugs that you have. But yeah, but I'm pretty hopeful, for Frost especially, to get the whole splitting ice. You have windows where you can hit more targets with it, and you can do some impactful things there. I think that would be fun. I don't really like this, but people always, I swear, I don't know. We always get people coming to the Mage Discord talking about Glacial Fragments, even after Shadowlands was over. I was not a big fan of Glacial Fragments. The current Glacial Blast is satisfying, and that makes you do a lot of damage. Our current 2 set as Frost, but it definitely creates a massive discrepancy in freezable and unfreezable AoE damage. That's still kind of fun. So, and then you could do something similar with Arcane. This is a bit boring in that it's literally just hit more target, do more damage. But you can come up with things that are more interesting. And I'd be a little bit surprised if we didn't have something in this talent tree affecting our main CD. I feel like with Spellslinger, this is like the perfect opportunity for them to do a bit of like a light. You get some of the other specs cooldown when you're in your cooldown thing. So Arcane gets a bit of a worse version of Icy Veins, and Frost can get Arcane Surge, which is just for the damage amp, I guess, unless you have Spell Steal all the time. But yeah, that or Touch the Magi, I suppose. You always do Touch the Magi for it. So yeah, Spellslinger. I'm also really hoping. I mean, personally, I'm more a fan of if they fix Fractured Frost and the Frostbolt cleaving. I think that fits a lot better with Frostfire's mechanics because you know there's a large chance that the cleaved Frostfire Bolt would generate multiple stacks of Frostfire Mastery. If you cleave this Frostfire Bolt Empower thing, that would be insane. The only issue is, one, Frostbolt is very weak. Two, Fractured Frost is RNG right now, which they really need to fix. And I always suggest the same thing every time I go on the forums about Fractured Frost. Make it like Inexorable Assault, right? Okay, where you just have you gain a stack over time, and then you essentially only need to use it once every 40 seconds, so you're not overcapping stacks, but then you can control when you're using it. Though, given how weak Frostbolt is, you need to like add a bit of a resonance effect from like Barrage has, where hitting more targets increases its damage, but that's okay. Anyway, so ironically enough, I have a big feeling that Fractured Frost, the multicast talent, is going to fit Frostfire a lot more than it's going to fit Spellslinger. We'll have to see. I wouldn't be against. A lot of people were one of the things that people were really talking about was that one of the like subspecializations for Mage could have been Lich, which is a mix of Arcane and Frost. So, if they want to lean into that in this anyway, you could expect something similar to Deathborn. Deathborn had a lot of issues, the main one being that it was a long CD that lasted too long as well. And then also how it calculated its damage when you spread your multi-hit thing. So its big benefit was the ramping spell power, but it like cleaving Arcane Blast, if it wasn't a square root Arcane Blast, would have been insane. So if they go that route, I think that would be very fun for Arcane to have the ability to cleave Arcane Blast at times without being massively penalized to do that. I think that would be kind of fun. The whole spam Frostbolt and AoE playstyle for Frost is just, I don't think it's ever going to work well or satisfyingly. When you're looking at Fractured Frost, I hate to talk about Fractured Frost as much. I love it. I need to get this talent changed. Anyway, we're looking at this, right? This is literally a % chance. You have to spam Frostbolt. Anytime you're not pressing Frostbolt, you're just losing value on this talent, and it makes your rotation so bad. It's like, don't want to press Glacial Spike, don't want to press Ice Lance, don't really want to press Blizzard, right? This build, by the way, was viable or competitive at one point in Dragonflight. It just, you didn't take Blizzard. It was like only good on like 3 to 5 targets, and it was worse below that and above that because you just didn't press Blizzard. You just Frostbolted and Flurried and Orbed, and that was your entire rotation. You probably never saw me play it. That's because this is cringe, but yeah, it was literally the best spec at some target counts in 10.0, I think, or 10.5. So yeah, this much better design. All right, we went off a little bit of a tangent, but yeah. So I'd expect to see something like this. I would like that for Cleave. If they do bring back like multi-strike's kind of weird when you're looking at Frost and Arcane specifically. We don't really want to encourage more RNG on Arcane, because if you multi-strike during your very impactful cooldown windows, that's insane. Right now, the game's already very RNG, so I don't know if we really want to lean more into that. Probably don't. Yeah, and for Frost, you'd have to like make the multi-strike count as like a different damage not instance, but different damage like type, quote unquote, I guess. I don't know the correct term for it, because otherwise it would consume your Winter's Chill. But there's a lot of background they have in that would fix that. For instance, back in Shadowlands, when Radiant Spark existed, Icicles and Frozen Orb benefited from Radiant Spark, but they didn't consume it. So they would have to do something similar for that, or like that for Arcane for multicasting, and they would have to do something similar for that for Frost for Winter's Chill. But yeah, I mean, that's probably pretty easily done. So anyway, personally, I think both specs are in like a great position at the moment. I think Arcane and Frost is a very weird overlap. The best gameplay elements of both, in my opinion, would be Arcane's Orb Barrage playstyle in AoE is very fun, and that you're kind of gambling, and it's not even really high risk. It's really just high reward most of the time. Um, so that's the best aspect of that, if you can tie some of that into Frost. But doing that in a way where it's like, oh, when I Glacial Spike, I have a chance to shoot out Arcane Orb, that would feel pretty bad, in my opinion. I think that's, kind of one and done with the whole overlapping our spells thing from Frostfire, and I don't think we would ideally do that again. But incorporating a Frost theme version of that into Frost rotation from that tree would be good. And then for Arcane, really, they don't have like the massive nukes that Frost has. Frost has a lot of massive nukes, right? It has Ray Frost, has Glacial Spike as the really big ones. Arcane doesn't have something similar. So, you do something like every 5 Arcane Barrages, you release some massive Arcane Blast thing. That would be kind of fun, right? You get a lot of the burst that Frost has, but still keeping the benefit of Arcane. So, I don't know. Those are kind of my thoughts, really. I'm excited to see what they have to come up for it. And yeah, I don't think I'm gonna make anything talking about Faded, but I'll probably look at Sun Fury again too. So yeah, let me know if you have any comments, questions down below.